Welcome to our channel, where we bring beloved stories to life. Today, we have a special treat for you. We're going to delve into the enchanting world of Pinocchio. Get ready to be captivated by this timeless tale of a wooden puppet who longs to become a real boy. Let's jump right into the story. In Tuscany, Italy, a carpenter named Master Antonio has found a block of wood that he plans to carve into a table leg. Frightened when the log cries out, he gives the log to his neighbor Geppetto, an old man who, upon seeing the log, immediately plans to carve a puppet from it and make a living as a traveling puppeteer. Geppetto carves the block into a boy and names him Pinocchio. As soon as Pinocchio's feet are carved, he tries to kick Geppetto. Once the puppet has been finished and Geppetto teaches him to walk, Pinocchio runs out the door and away into the town. He is caught by a carabinieri, who assumes Pinocchio has been mistreated and imprisons Geppetto. Left alone, Pinocchio heads back to Geppetto's house to get something to eat. Once he arrives at home, a talking cricket warns him of the perils of disobedience. In retaliation, Pinocchio throws a hammer at the cricket, accidentally killing it. Pinocchio gets hungry and tries to fry an egg, but a bird emerges from the egg and Pinocchio has to leave for food. He knocks on a neighbor's door who fears he is pulling a child's prank and instead dumps water on him. Cold and wet, Pinocchio goes home and lies down on a stove. When he wakes, his feet have burned off. Luckily, Geppetto is released from prison and makes Pinocchio a new pair of feet. In gratitude, he promises to attend school, and Geppetto sells his only coat to buy him a school book. On his way to school the next morning, Pinocchio encounters the Great Marionette Theater, and he sells his school book in order to buy a ticket for the show. During the performance, the puppets Harlequin, Pulcinella and Signora Rosaura on stage call out to him, angering the puppet master Mangiafuoco. Upset, he decides to use Pinocchio as firewood to cook his lamb dinner. After Pinocchio pleads for his and Harlequin's salvation and upon learning of Geppetto's poverty, Mangiafuoco releases him and gives him 5 gold pieces. On his way home, Pinocchio meets a fox and a cat. The cat pretends to be blind, and the fox pretends to be lame. A white blackbird tries to warn Pinocchio of their lies, but the cat eats the bird. The two animals convince Pinocchio that if he plants his coins in the Field of Miracles outside the city of Asciapicitrulli, they will grow into a tree with gold coins. They stop at an inn, where the fox and the cat trick Pinocchio into paying for their meals and flee. They instruct the innkeeper to tell Pinocchio that they left after receiving a message that the cat's eldest kitten had fallen ill and that they would meet Pinocchio at the Field of Miracles in the morning. As Pinocchio sets off for Catchfools, the ghost of the talking cricket appears, telling him to go home and give the coins to his father. Pinocchio ignores his warnings again. As he passes through a forest, the fox and cat, disguised as bandits, ambush Pinocchio, robbing him. The puppet hides the coins in his mouth and escapes to a white house after biting off the cat's paw. Upon knocking on the door, Pinocchio is greeted by a young fairy with turquoise hair who says she is dead and waiting for a hearse. Unfortunately, the bandits catch Pinocchio and hang him in a tree. After a while, the fox and cat get tired of waiting for the puppet to suffocate, and they leave. The fairy has Pinocchio rescued and calls in 3 doctors to evaluate him. The owl says he is alive, the crow says he is dead. The third doctor is the ghost of the talking cricket who says that the puppet is fine, but has been disobedient and hurt his father. The fairy administers medicine to Pinocchio which he takes when a bunch of undertaker rabbits show up to collect his body. Recovered, Pinocchio lies to the fairy when she asks what has happened to the gold coins and his nose grows. The fairy explains that Pinocchio's lies are making his nose grow and calls in a flock of woodpeckers to chisel it down to size. The fairy sends for Geppetto to come and live with them in the forest cottage. When Pinocchio heads out to meet his father, he once again encounters the fox and the cat. When Pinocchio notices the cat's missing paw, the fox claims that they had to sacrifice it to feed a hungry old wolf. They remind the puppet of the Field of Miracles, and finally, he agrees to go with them and plant his gold. Once there, Pinocchio buries his coins and leaves for the 20 minutes that it will take for his gold tree to grow. The fox and the cat dig up the coins and run away. Once Pinocchio returns, a parrot mocks Pinocchio for falling for the fox and cat's tricks. Pinocchio rushes to the Catchfools courthouse where he reports the theft of the coins to a gorilla judge. Although he is moved by Pinocchio's plea, the gorilla judge sentences Pinocchio to 4 months in prison for the crime of foolishness. Fortunately, all criminals are released early by the jailers when the Emperor of Catchfools declares a celebration following his army's victory over the town's enemies. As Pinocchio heads back to the forest, he finds an enormous snake with a smoking tail blocking the way. After some confusion, he asks the serpent to move, but the serpent remains completely still. Concluding that it is dead, Pinocchio begins to step over it, but the serpent suddenly rises up and hisses at the marionette, toppling him over onto his head. Struck by Pinocchio's fright and comical position, the snake laughs so hard he bursts an artery and dies. Pinocchio then heads back to the fairy's house in the forest, but he sneaks into a farmer's yard to steal some grapes. He is caught in a weasel trap where he encounters a glowworm. The farmer finds Pinocchio and ties him up in his doghouse. When Pinocchio foils the chicken-stealing weasels, the farmer frees the puppet as a reward. Pinocchio finally returns to the cottage, finds nothing but a gravestone, and believes that the fairy has died. A friendly pigeon sees Pinocchio mourning the fairy's death and offers to give him a ride to the seashore, where Geppetto is building a boat in which to search for Pinocchio. Pinocchio is washed ashore when he tries to swim to his father. Geppetto is then swallowed by the terrible dogfish. Pinocchio accepts a ride from a dolphin to the nearest island called the Island of Busy Bees. Upon arriving on the island, Pinocchio can only get food in return for labor. Pinocchio offers to carry a lady's jug home in return for food and water. When they get to the lady's house, Pinocchio recognizes the lady as the fairy, now miraculously old enough to be his mother. She says she will act as his mother, and Pinocchio will begin going to school. She hints that if Pinocchio does well in school and is good for 1 year, then he will become a real boy. Pinocchio studies hard and rises to the top of his class, making the other boys jealous. They trick Pinocchio into playing hooky by saying they saw a large sea monster at the beach, the same one that swallowed Geppetto. However, the boys were lying and a fight breaks out. Pinocchio is accused of injuring another boy, so the puppet escapes. During his escape, Pinocchio saves a drowning mastiff named Alidoro. In exchange, Alidoro later saves Pinocchio from the green fisherman, who was going to eat the marionette. After meeting the snail that works for the fairy, Pinocchio is given another chance by the fairy. Pinocchio does excellently in school. The fairy promises that Pinocchio will be a real boy the next day and says he should invite all his friends to a party. He goes to invite everyone, but he is sidetracked when he meets his closest friend from school, a boy nicknamed Candlewick, who is about to go to a place called Toyland where everyone plays all day and never works. Pinocchio goes along with him and they have a wonderful time for the next 5 months. One morning in the 5th month, Pinocchio and Candlewick awake with donkey's ears. A marmot tells Pinocchio that he has got a donkey fever. Boys who do nothing but play and never study always turn into donkeys. Soon, both Pinocchio and Candlewick are fully transformed. Pinocchio is sold to a circus where he is trained to do tricks, until he falls and sprains his leg after seeing the fairy with turquoise hair in one of the box seats. The ringmaster then sells Pinocchio to a man who wants to skin him and make a drum. The man throws the donkey into the sea to drown him. When the man goes to retrieve the corpse, all he finds is a living marionette. Pinocchio explains that the fish ate all the donkey skin off him and he is now a puppet again. Pinocchio dives back into the water and swims out to sea. When the terrible dogfish appears, Pinocchio is swallowed by it. Inside the dogfish, Pinocchio unexpectedly finds Geppetto. Pinocchio and Geppetto escape with the help of a large tuna and look for a new place to live. Pinocchio and Geppetto encounter the fox and the cat, now impoverished. The cat has really become blind, and the fox has really become lame. The fox and the cat plead for food or money, but Pinocchio rebuffs them and tells them that they have earned their misfortune. Geppetto and Pinocchio arrive at a small house, which is home to the talking cricket. The talking cricket says they can stay and reveals that he got his house from a little goat with turquoise hair. Pinocchio gets a job doing work for a farmer and recognizes the farmer's dying donkey as his friend Candlewick. After long months of working for the farmer and supporting the ailing Geppetto, Pinocchio goes to town with the 40 pennies he has saved to buy himself a new suit. He discovers that the fairy is ill and needs money. Pinocchio instantly gives the snail he met back on the island of Busy Bees all the money he has. That night, he dreams that he is visited by the fairy, who kisses him. When he wakes up, he is a real boy. His former puppet body lies lifeless on a chair. The fairy has also left him a new suit, boots, and a bag which contains 40 gold coins instead of pennies. Geppetto also returns to health.